welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com. Hello and welcome everybody to a dreary, sad, a little disappointing, unfortunately super sunny and gorgeous day out here in the city of Pittsburgh. It's Friday, December 10th. Derek, nobody's feeling good today. Nobody at all. And I want to ask this just to jump right out into this. Would you feel worse right now if the Pittsburgh Steelers just took the beating and walked away? Or would you feel worse right now and how you feel and how it ended?
I mean, I think you got to feel some type of way, proud of the guys for fighting back. I mean, it was a heck of an effort, down the stretch to make that a game that they had a chance to win at the end. But
yeah, no doubt.
It's really disappointing, man. These slow starts are killing this team, and this has been like really a familiar theme pretty much the entire year. So, yeah, it's disappointing. It was a game that they had to have. Every game's a playoff game for this team kind of on the rest of the way. If they have any shot of making it, and to come away with a loss is frustrating. So
the part that I think kept me a little bit afloat was that going into the game, Thursday night games always leave me with a little bit of like, yeah, there's no way they're going to win this game. They're flying to Minnesota. They played 3 days ago. Their quarterback's 40 years old. They have no healthy defensive line. There's those things. Walk me through your emotions here from the start of the game until that last Freiermuth play.
To be honest, man, the Thursday night thing, obviously it's not ideal, but we've talked about it on here a lot. Like Ben, the way he is now with like his rhythm, yeah, I thought the Thursday night game kind of worked a little bit in our favor in that regard. Like, yeah, he's old and dealing with some injuries, but he played like he was coming off his best game of the season. He
played well though.
Yeah, he played.
It wasn't him that was the problem. It was everybody else. It felt like.
Really it just comes down to, man, Mike Tomlin hit on it in his post-game press conference. The Steelers are just getting whooped up front. They're a bad team in the trenches right now, and it's hard to overcome that unless you have like some transcendent talent at quarterback. You're just really not going to have a chance. They ran the ball really inefficiently in the first half. They really only ran the ball kind of when the Vikings went to those two deep shells trying to prevent the big play, which at least was like something, but just had a lot of problems in protection, communication issues, struggles to snap the freaking football. I've never seen a professional team that struggled this much with snapping the football over the last couple of years. And then just defensively, like you mentioned, like they're short on bodies up front. They lost TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith at some point in the game to injuries, but they were getting whooped with those guys in the lineup anyway. So that's why my thought process was it didn't really matter. Minnesota was just better up front. Dalvin Cook with a torn labrum or whatever is up with his shoulder, ran for 200 plus yards. That's just inexcusable.
Yeah, I saw your tweet. I wish I actually brought it up here to show everybody else of Trey Turner and Kendrick Green like pointing at each other. Why Eric Kendricks is just smoking Ben Roethlisberger. And it's true. That's just what it came down to. And I guess we'll start with the offensive side of the ball. First off, a little injury update for Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith and both TJ Watt both avoided major injuries, which is good news. Watt should be able to play against Titans. Highsmith, I'm not totally sure about yet. We'll get more reports there. Those are both coming from me and Rappaport, but I dug a little bit as well. So things are feeling good. The offensive side of the ball, you said it, and I think we've just used it as an excuse this whole season. It's Kendrick Green is a new center. You can't expect things to be perfect. And we're 14 weeks into the season and he still can't snap a football consistently. At what point do you start thinking do you not think it's him?
No, it's just but I think we're doing this weird thing this year with some of these rookies. Like the Steelers are playing a ton of rookies, and you got to give those guys time. And you always grade on a curve, right? So, you're not expecting rookies to come in and change your franchise year one. It's unrealistic. But I don't think it's unrealistic to expect baseline, at least NFL-level play from a center in December of his rookie year. Is it a tough transition when you didn't play there in college? Absolutely. But, can't snap the football. It's not there was at least, I mean, I'm thinking about making a montage of it because I think there was at least like 15 snaps that like Ben had to corral in some form or fashion. And like that's very difficult for an offense is a quick hitting rhythm passing game when you're always trying to grab the football all over the place.
Yeah.
And he's been awful in the run game this year, which has been problematic. And he's not the only rookie too. I mean, Van Moore's had his struggles, but I still think that it's kind of unrealistic to ask a day 3 tackle to come in and protect a 40-year-old immobile, a 39-year-old immobile quarterback's blind side. But like even, you look around at other rookies that they've got that have just been extremely inconsistent and just not at the level that you'd expect at this point in the season, like Presley Harvin. I mean, Harvin's been one of the NFL's worst punters. He came into the week 31st in yards per punt. Jordan Berry was by far the best punter on the field last night. Again, the guy that the Steelers chose to cut instead of Harvin. So it's just frustrating, man. Like they're not getting enough from a lot of different guys. And that's why it seems every week's just a struggle.
It is. You can't start. I mean, obviously the Steelers have started slow for years, but I think a lot of it right now is that, you know what I mean? It takes so much to get a rhythm going that by the time you get anything going, it's in the second half. And we've seen this, they play well once that rhythm goes. Go ahead.
And I thought that Tomlin made a really good point because we've talked a lot about like Ben's rhythm and the offense's rhythm. People will come up with whatever narrative they want to with that. But I think Tomlin made a really good point last night, and it's something that is very true in my opinion. Like the Steelers' inability to win in the trenches and their struggles on both sides of the football, you can't control the game. So you're not being like proactive. You're instead being reactive. When you're like a reactive offense and defenses can dictate to you how they want to play, for example, how defenses have been able to play 2 deep safeties or light boxes against the Steelers because they can't run the football, or they can do different things on defense because the Steelers just can't win up front. And that's really where they're so freaking limited. And it's really frustrating to me, man. It's really frustrating.
I think the worst part of it all is that Kendrick Green misses a lot of blocks, like you alluded to before. It's not just the snaps. It's the fact that he's not snapping the ball correctly, and it's the fact that after he snaps the ball incorrectly, he's not touching anybody, which is aggravating. Do you move him? You're not going to move him this season, but is that something moving forward? You're just like, well, he's got to play guard. He can't play center.
I mean, I've been on the train, like, you need to let him try to figure this out this year. I mean, they don't really necessarily have any options behind him. BJ Finney's not really going to be a ton better. But, I mean, some of Green's problems, though, in the run game, like, yes, there is a difference between being a center and the run game. You're having to snap the football and then get your hands up and get them engaged with blockers that are literally right over top of you, whereas if you're a guard, you're literally just firing off the football. But some of his issues, even in pass protection or in the run game, aren't necessarily fixable just by moving in position. So while I do think that that's something they'll look at next year, I mean, center, if you do move him, you still have to draft a center. And then, how many guys are going to be capable of playing? You're looking at another rookie center with probably a new quarterback next year. I mean, maybe they could get Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa or something like that. I'm sure there's a couple other NFL ready guys, maybe day 1, but
but day 1 you can't draft a center. That can't be. Point of emphasis can't be center. Like that's off the board already. If anything, it's a right tackle.
They've got so many things. Like I saw Nick tweet this out last night, but I completely agree. I mean, the Steelers have about 8 guys who I think are like high level pieces that you build around for the future. Everyone else is like replacement level, which you're never going to turn over that many guys. Like, I'm not expecting 12 or 15 new starters, but like you're going to see a lot of new starters next year on both sides of the ball. I mean, they have some great pieces, Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and even offense. They've got young guys that have played extremely well for the most part. I mean, Deontay Johnson had a rough game last night, dropped a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth, Pat Freiermuth been really good all season, especially for a rookie tight end. The tough play at the end, Najee Harris. But like outside of those guys, I mean, across the offensive line, outside of Kevin Dotson, he's the only guy that I'm really even penciling in as like a for sure starter next year. Everyone else. Would
you even pencil him in though? I mean, Kevin Dotson struggled this season when he's played, and he's unhealthy. He hasn't been able to complete a season in 2 years.
For the first month, I thought he was like probably one of their most disappointing players, but I think he's just really been consistent since that point, to where like he looks more like the guy we saw last year whenever he did get the chance to fill in, due to injuries. So
yeah, he did. And to that point, I guess he did miss time in the summer, which, you need that ramp up period. I don't know. I'm not totally sold on Kevin Dotson yet. I don't think that's like anything more than I'm just skeptical on everybody on the offensive line, which really worries me.
Warranted.
Yeah, but I don't know what, I don't know what the fix is. I guess you do have to put some faith in some guys. When it comes to the rest of the offense, to not score a touchdown until 2 minutes left in the third quarter against the Minnesota, and like say what you want, the Minnesota Vikings are a good defense with a good defensive coach, but I mean, they gave up points to Jared Goff. They've given up points to everybody else, Pittsburgh Steelers included. The Steelers showed them what they could do late in that game. Can you fix that? If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, can you fix the fact that it's been 5 years and you haven't been able to start fast?
It's very perplexing. I mean, Ben talked about in the post-game presser yesterday. They've spent more time, going over those scripted plays to start the game. But I mean, they can't seem to get out their own way. They had a penalty that set them back on the first drive, and then you missed the field goal. It's just like this team, and that's kind of what happens. Like when you no longer have an elite quarterback, and obviously the defense has been terrible, but when you no longer have an elite quarterback, that margin for error is so small. Like when you don't have very many just top end type of elite talents, that margin for error shrinks and it's so small. So like little things like, you take a stupid penalty, 10 yards, that ends a drive, like almost every time, and that's what's kind of frustrating is like they don't have enough high end talent, especially on offense, to get out of those situations. So like, when you make stupid mistakes, like committing penalties, having to burn timeouts because you can't get the play in correctly, having to, bad snaps, all that stuff is just really overly frustrating. And it's a weekly basis type of thing. They just can't seem to get out of their own way. And then when they do, I mean, we've seen like that. And I think that's what's even more frustrating for like the fan base is like when they do get it going, like it's actually pretty fun to watch. Like, honestly, the offense has been pretty much what I expected coming into the year. Like I knew they probably weren't going to be very good because I thought the offensive line was terrible. But I mean, they're really not that far off. I mean, they're like the 20th ranked offense in the league. I mean, they're not very far off to where we probably thought they'd be this year, honestly.
No, the offense, I think, plays well. And like the whole elite quarterback, Ben's good. And Ben went from a serious problem in this offense to at times could definitely still win you games. I don't really think that was like a big question coming into it. I thought that Ben will die on the football field if need be.
He almost did last night.
He almost did last night to that pass to Matt Freiermuth. He was real close, actually. And the 5 sacks before that, which were crazy. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball because there's no fixing the offense. Dalvin Cook tore it up. I saw your tweet. Over the last 6 games, the Steelers have given up 178 yards per game rushing the football. And that totaled out to 1,072 yards. 6 games. 6 games. Highlighted by Dalvin Cook. Going off 205 yards and 2 scores last night. What do you have, 117 yards or something in the first half? The dude is 11 days removed from a torn shoulder. Came in here and it didn't even look like it. He had to try. Where does that start? Is that just like there's no Tyson Alulu? There's Devin Bush and Joe Schobert are terrible.
It's so many things. Like people trying to pin it solely on the fact that Alu and Tuitt's not there, or solely on the fact that the inside linebackers aren't there. They're not maintaining gap integrity, and they're not winning at the point of attack. Like Mike Tomlin said, if you can't control the line of scrimmage in the NFL, you're gonna have problems, and that's really what it comes down to. 178 yards allowed on the ground over the last 6 weeks. The Steelers are on pace to give up 2,371 rushing yards this season. That would be 360-something more than the most in franchise history. So add the 17th game, but it wouldn't have mattered. This is on pace to be a historically bad run defense for the Steelers, and can make all the excuses about injuries and all this other stuff, man. But this is at some point when football teams, it's cliche, but like when you're getting beat up and just out physical, it comes a matter of like pride. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the Steelers did kind of man up a little bit towards the end of the game. They got some stops on Cook. They made some personnel changes. They put Miles Killebrew in the game. We saw them rotate Buddy Johnson in the game. We saw them rotate Marcus Allen, which I don't know why Marcus Allen's playing, but
Marcus Allen was on the field to be a coverage guy.
And then gets burnt.
Marcus Allen's a terrible coverage guy. That's why he can't play safety.
So, like, it's just one of those things, man. Like, it's a lot of different issues. And the Vikings, I mean, they're a good run team. They're going to outside zone you to death. But, I mean, you can look at some of those runs. I mean, and no offense to Dalvin, because Dalvin's a fantastic runner. Like, I don't want to take anything away from him. You rush for 200-plus yards on a bum shoulder, you're a dog. But at the same time, you look at some of those runs, I mean, I could have parked a U-Haul through some of those holes. I mean,
what did he say last night? Aaron Andrews could have ran through those holes.
It doesn't matter. I mean, literally, seriously, 39-year-old Ben could have ran through some of those holes. Seriously.
Oh yeah,
that's how embarrassing some of those run defense plays were.
Yeah, the touchdown. I want to say it was his second touchdown. Is a perfect highlight of that. You somehow had a right tackle just destroying Akello Witherspoon, and nobody else was anywhere around. I'm like, how does a tackle take on a cornerback and there's nobody there to cover that hole at all? That's how wide open it was. I agree. I don't know where it starts. I don't think it could start anywhere. I'll give you this. I mean, I liked Joe Schobert after he got benched. He came back in. He made a couple of good tackles. I don't think that continues. I don't know if that goes into next week. Devin Bush had a couple of decent hits. I mean, Monty Adams is playing okay. It just seems like there's just no oomph. You know what I mean? It's just all, yeah, exactly. They came in vanilla, very vanilla. And like they've been like that all season to the point where once they start getting moved back, it feels like they can't pick their feet up. You know what I mean? They're just on their heels the whole time.
One of the things I want to talk about, what game plan wise, like I can understand, when you play offenses like Minnesota, who's they're streaky, but they're talented. They're decent up front. They have a great running back. They have two elite wide receivers, one of which who did play last night. You have to take away something. And that was kind of my frustrating point last night. Like the Steelers left Justin Jefferson single covered however many times throughout the game.
He should have caught a touchdown pass that was defended by Justin Lane.
There was multiple times where they left him like singled up. And that was the thing we talked about. We talked about it before the game, like in the last couple of days. Like if you leave Jefferson or Thielen in single coverage, they are going to eat you alive because they are literally unguardable. Like that's why Cousins is so consistent and why he's had the year that he's had is because he's got two receivers that can literally win against any cornerback in the league. They run every route. They don't have weaknesses. So, the Steelers, like in the red zone, Minnesota hits them with those crossing routes. You've got man-to-man coverage with one single high safety. Minka has to choose which one to go with. Like, it's just you're putting your defense in a bad spot. Like, when you can't stop the run and then you're also single covering, like, a top 5 receiver in the league, it's a game plan thing. You got to take something away and make them choose how they're going to beat you. You can't just let it be a full free-for-all.
My issue with the Steelers defense when it comes to the pass is that Mike Tomlin is so pass-oriented in his mindset when it comes to sculpting a defensive plan. And, like, I'm not going to get into the whole him or Butler making this play, blah, blah, blah. I don't know who it is. I don't care who it is.
Pointless.
Mike Tomlin, from what I know, is very defensive-minded or very pass-oriented when it comes to his defensive mindset, which is okay. But it's not okay when you're using Derek Tushka even before TJ Watt left, to the amount that he actually is. Because the game plan for the Steelers is our secondary isn't good enough to cover these guys, so we just have to get to the quarterback. And it works with guys like Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson's going to drop back in the pocket, and he's going to look to get out of the pocket. Kirk Cousins is looking, he's just dropping in the pocket. That's his natural habitat. You don't have anybody to disrupt that. Your guys in the secondary are going to get beat every single time, and that's what we've seen. All these times, guys getting beat over the top, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, no matter who it is. It's the fact that these quarterbacks are comfortable in the pocket, and the Steelers defense isn't designed to stop that. It's either get to the quarterback or lose that down, and you can't do that. I mean, right, we could go into Tennessee. It could be Taco Charlton and Derek Tushka. Ryan Tannehill could have a field day, an absolute field day.
Yeah, Deb's a problem. Tomlin talked about that in the post game too. Deb's a problem, especially up front, and like you saw that. I mean, I did notice Taco flashed at least one time. I know he drew that holding penalty. I think he might have had another hit on Kirk Cousins, but I mean, they're just not getting it. Not getting off enough blocks. I mean, it's cliche, and you can spin it how you want with the injuries and everything else. But the Vikings do a lot of play action, and they love to take shots off play action. It was all over the tape, and they took several shots off play action. Really early in the game. The very first one to Jefferson was a play that I literally talked about. It's the same exact play from the week before. So it's just like really funny. Like, the Vikings, they do what they do on offense, man. It's like they should have known what was coming. And the fact that they decided to single up a top 5 receiver in the league is just mind boggling to me.
Here, this is a good question for you. They've shut down Waller, Adams, Diggs, as we've seen in the past. They couldn't do it for Jefferson. Why?
I want to look at that. It's hard to answer those questions like without the all 22 before that comes out. But I mean, the reason that the Steelers were able to do that stuff early in the season is because I felt like they were using Minka a little bit differently, and also they were playing better up front, so you don't have to dedicate as many guys to the box. I'm interested to see what the game plan looked on the back end, because like we mentioned, Jefferson could have had several more touchdowns. There was one play that Cousins got hit a little early, had to let it go early, but otherwise could have been a touchdown. There was another bad throw from Cousins that looked like it could have been a touchdown. Jefferson's a great player. They move him around.
Yeah, obviously. But so is Stephon Diggs, Darren Waller.
That's the thing. You're never going to be able to completely blanket those guys. You just want to try to neutralize them and at least take away the big plays. And they allowed a couple explosive plays, kind of like they've allowed all year. You mentioned the ones to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins a couple weeks ago. The Steelers defense and their cornerbacks in general have had a lot of issues keeping the ball in front of them. And when you're a defense that doesn't play a lot of man-to-man, you're not going to create turnovers like that because you don't get up in guys' face and press coverage. You're not getting takeaways. Can't allow the big plays down the field. And they've done that repeatedly over and over and over this season. That's why James Pierre's bench right now.
Yeah, which is a good way to lead into this because Ahkello Witherspoon had a pretty great game, honestly. For a guy who is coming in to replace the replacement, second game. Last week he stepped up, made a big play late in the game. He looked pretty good. He had a lot of swagger. This week comes away with 2 picks. One of them, I don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand how you could keep up with a guy like Justin Jefferson and NFL wide receivers, but as soon as the ball's in your hand, you run like an NFL fullback. I don't.
That was really weird, wasn't it? And the thing is, man, we've talked. I am so glad because I kept telling people that there is a good version of Ahkello Witherspoon. We talked about it so much on here.
So many times.
To see him play really well last night was awesome. That's the thing, man. Look, corner to me is the defensive side of quarterback in terms of it's so mental, man. You have to be confident, have that swagger about you. You saw that with Witherspoon. Once he made 1 or 2 plays last week and they threw at him and that ball fell incomplete, he started getting really upbeat, clapping. Mm-hmm. You could see he was really focused. And you saw that same kind of swagger last night. They attacked him a couple different times and they didn't really have much success. It was awesome. That play that he made on Jefferson to undercut that slant route was awesome. We haven't seen a corner or a Steelers defender make a play like that all season. And that's the thing about Witherspoon. He's height, weight, speed. He got a lot of length. He can really run. He's an athletic dude who tested off the charts when he was coming out of Colorado. So it's just a matter of consistency, man. It's not a talent thing. Witherspoon 100% has enough talent to be a starting NFL cornerback on a good defense. It's just a matter of can he stay out of his own head and play consistently enough? Yeah,
I agree. I think that last night was but it does leave me some worry because like you just said, like we've talked about 10 times on the show, he's inconsistent. That's his only problem is we don't know what Ahkello Witherspoon we're going to get. The problem with that is at the same time, we've only seen one Ahkello Witherspoon as a starter and he's pretty freaking good.
They're really good.
He's not bad. So Joe Hayden, I don't know what to expect from Joe Hayden moving forward. At 32 years old, it's rough to say coming back from a foot injury that's already kept you sidelined for 4 weeks is just going to magically go away. I don't know if that happens, but Kel Witherspoon's a good option to have. I don't know what happened on that interception. That should have been a touchdown. You run with cement in your shoes.
If you go look at that one, the flag that Minka got on that ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what you want. I'm not going to go full Mike Mitchell and complain about, flag football, but I don't know what you want Minka to do there, because literally he leads with the shoulder, hits the dude's shoulder on a hospital ball from Kirk Cousins, and he gets a flag for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. NFL got to do better, got to be better. But
he did the same exact thing on that. The last 3 and out, I believe he did the same exact thing to, I believe it was Justin Jefferson. Same exact thing. Yeah, no flag. It was the same exact play.
But that's the thing. Like, you're asking, and it's just, I'm not going to get on my soapbox about it, but you're asking defenders to make last-second adjustments to poorly thrown footballs that are high and leaving the receivers out to dry. In the early 2000s, man, that hit, or that last ball to Jefferson that Minka luckily held up on so he didn't get a penalty.
Oh, he was bad.
Put somebody on IR.
Yeah.
Because,
if that's Ryan Clark.
Yes, Lee Flowers, John Lynch, Leroy Butler would have put that dude in a hospital bag. Like, dude, I mean, it would have been – I mean, it's just ridiculous that quarterbacks are able to get away with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the NFL, though. We could go on about the refs every single game. I feel like we do a little bit. But I don't think you could fix it. I said that. I might have said that on Tuesday with Donnie. I don't know. I don't think you could fix the NFL ref situation. I think that they're just dramatically getting worse because I have actually no idea why. But yeah, hits like that. I mean, dude, imagine Brian Dawkins coming at you. John Lynch was a perfect example. You take a hit from that, like you don't see it coming, you're not going to get up. Justin Jefferson's gone for the whole game. And
that's what I'm saying. Like, these quarterbacks think that they can, like, just throw lollipops over the middle because, like, they just can't hit guys anymore. And that's what's just frustrating, because you see a perfectly legal hit. Minka's not out there head hunting. It's like Mike Mitchell said, man, it's like, I got to ask for your permission to hit you. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's an offensive league. We know that. It's kind of rough. We'll flip it back over to the offense here for a couple of minutes. Chase Claypool has obviously been a very hot topic for that first down point on a 4th and 2, I believe, catch with 36 seconds left. Took about 10 seconds off the play. I will say this, and I want to show everybody this because I didn't see it at first, but apparently, like, Eric Kendricks actually does hit the ball away from Chase Claypool when he stood up. And I feel like people should kind of see that, because I feel like a lot of people didn't see that. You know what I mean? Like, right, he gets up. Look, first off, that's 4 or 5 seconds right there. Say whatever you want. Genius play by Kendricks. Like, that's just what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't have a question for. What are your thoughts?
Just don't put yourself in that position. Really. That's there's nothing like any receiver. I used to watch I'll try to tweet something out, but I used to watch Larry Fitzgerald in those moments and those 2-minute drills. I used to watch him catch the ball, get tackled, and literally go place the ball on the right hash where it's supposed to be placed so the ref can literally instantly start the clock. Celebrating the first down point, not necessary. Really stupid. Nope. Okay. Clever play by Kendricks.
Yeah.
And one that's not really all that uncommon, but it was clever. I'll give him that. But, Chase's thing, and, he had the penalty early in the first half for taunting too, and then immediately, misses the block, and then he gets benched, and then he comes back, makes a spectacular catch down the right sideline to even really get them into that spot to score on the final drive. It's the same thing we say all season long. Like, he's got some flaws. He's maddeningly inconsistent, staying on his feet, tracking the football. He makes some spectacular plays, super talented, but the dude has a long way to go in terms of, like, growing up and maturity. It's every week. Like, if you actually go back and watch the Bengals game from a couple weeks ago, the Bengals DBs, they hit him after every play. Like, every route, even when he wasn't getting the ball, they took a couple cheap shots at him away from the football that didn't get called. But guys know that they can get under his skin because he's a hothead. And that's exactly what Minnesota did last night early in the game. They start, I think Chase catches that ball. It's like a 6-yard gain. He goes out of bounds, gets up. I think it's Boyd, but I don't know. It could have been Breland. I don't know. But they get up and they shoulder check him right on the sideline. And then he does the whole thing. He does the whole getting in his face, hits his face mask, and he gets called for the penalty. Guys just know that they can get under his skin and get him out of his element. And Chase is an emotional dude. You just got to be able to keep that in check and use that correctly. Because, I mean, he's talented. It's just the inconsistency stuff. You just can't have it in those moments.
You can't. And I think the biggest thing, I've seen a lot of people defend Chase Claypool in this situation over the last 12 hours or so. And they always say the same thing, like, oh, he's 23. It's only his second year in the NFL. The second year in the NFL, you are a veteran. You've been here. You've been around grown men. Yeah, it's done. Like, you have about 6 games into your NFL career before being a rookie isn't an excuse anymore. And that's where Chase Claypool is at 23 years old. It doesn't matter what it is. If this was a college game and he just blew a college game doing something dumb like that, people would still be complaining about it in the same fashion. So there's not really an excuse there. You're dead on, and there's not really a ton to say outside of there's no point for that. You're down 8 points for one. You don't even need like a touchdown to score. You need a touchdown and 2-point conversion. This game's far, far from guaranteed that this is going into overtime. You get a first down where your team's trying to build momentum, not trying to get cocky. So don't do that. Like you said, he already got benched earlier in the game because he lets his emotions get to him. I'm sure that Mike Tomlin didn't go over there to him and say, okay, you're on the bench, and didn't give him a reason. I'm sure that there was a talk. I'm sure that there was a moment where Mike Tomlin was like, dude, this is what you're doing wrong. You got to keep yourself in check because you're going to cost us a game. And he goes back in and does that. I don't know if that ever changes. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's just who Chase Claypool is. Maybe that comes with being 6'4", 230, and you can run a 4.3. You know, at some point you got to just think you're already better than everybody.
Well, that's the thing. These athletes that get to the NFL level, they've dominated their entire lives at every single level that they've played football. So, I mean, you get a little bit of a big head. And see, I don't want to make it seem like Chase is a bad dude or that we're trying to like attack him or anything like that.
No.
It's just an accountability thing, man. Like, you're trying to win a football game. And that's when you got a 39-year-old quarterback who's trying to make one last playoff push to get his 3rd Super Bowl. And as unlikely and as improbable as that is, and, you're doing stupid stuff like celebrating after a first down and you got 25 seconds left to score to win the game, like to have a chance to win the game. It's pointing the spotlight at you instead of putting the team first. And you just can't do that. And Chase just seems like he has more of an interest at times in himself instead of what the team's trying to accomplish. He's the most polarizing player probably on this Steelers team. There's been a lot of guys who have underperformed and had bad seasons. That's just what comes with being 6-6-1 this far in the year. But he's definitely been the most maddeningly inconsistent and polarizing because he's made some great plays, but he's also just made some plays that you just can't win with.
No. And it'd be one thing if his play was inconsistent, but it's just the mental things.
Everything.
You could get rid of what I'm saying is you can get rid of the penalties and kind of deal with the inconsistencies. You could you don't want them, but you could fix those. You can't fix a dude who talks smack after every play or doesn't take a cheap shot well. This is the NFL. Guys are so smart at how to annoy somebody. This game is probably one of the smartest sports in the whole world, if not the smartest sport in the whole world. These guys, everything that they do has a purpose. If you're Chase Claypool, you have to, it goes both ways. Hines Ward used to smile all the time, and people are like, oh, he's just a happy dude. That's just who he was. Like, now Hines Ward knew that, like, there was something messing with you.
Calculated.
Exactly. Everything was a calculated move. Chase Claypool doesn't have that. I hope that he does get that. Because like you said, I'm not trying to sit here and attack Chase Claypool. Did he cost them the game? No. Did he cost them that moment? Yeah, maybe. But I'm not going to put
time. That's the thing. We look at like little. The Steelers didn't even. I won't even say they lost that game on that final drive. They didn't lose.
No. They lost the game going down 23-0 at halftime.
Yeah, they didn't lose that game by Claypool doing that. They didn't lose that game by Pat having that ball fall through his hands in the end zone. They didn't lose that game by any one particular thing. But like the two moments really there was multiple moments on that final drive that really frustrated me. One, Ray McCloud letting that punt roll 7 yards and taking an additional 4 seconds off the clock.
Yep.
Claypool or the block in the back on a guy that was nowhere near the play on the screen pass, took seconds off the clock and a penalty. Then you look at the Claypool celebration that costed him several seconds. Those 3 things, man, how many plays could you get out of that on the end zone? Like, I mean, that's 3-4 plays at least that you got to where, you know what, Harrison Smith makes a great play, knocks the ball out of Freiermuth's hands. Hey, it's first down, second down. We got another 2 shots at this thing. You know, it's little plays like that. It's attention to detail, and they've got a lot of young players, and they're forcing them to grow up really quickly. It's just really frustrating, man. Like the lack of attention to detail in those big moments, it's crushing.
That's what, when you have, I mean, the Steelers I'm pretty sure they are the youngest offense in the NFL if you remove Ben Roethlisberger. And that's the only way you can win games. You can't win games off pure talent when these guys are second, third year guys. It has to be attention to detail. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers run the 2-minute drill every single day. They should know how to do this. And it's not like, they have 2 minutes. Like Mike Tomlin comes in and they'll look at Ben and they'll be like, you got 1:15. Go get it done. Every single day at practice. And to not understand the sense of urgency that you need to have in that situation. I mean, you could go back. I get that the Vikings did a lot of good things, like they laid on Ray for a quick second there. But if I'm Ray, I'm fighting that. And he just like casually got up, you know what I mean? Like dropped the ball. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like these things need to happen. It was the whole drive was very bad. I think it was just highlighted by Chase.
And just the urgency in general, man. Like you're a team that's like literally not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but you're freaking close, even in a weak AFC this year. But you know, just not really having the urgency, starting off the game slow, and then in those big moments, you know, just not really laser focused. Just for a profession, like a bunch of professionals, that's really disheartening to see. You can live with the mistakes, you know, guys aren't going to be perfect. The opponents get, you know, paid to play the game too. You know, that's kind of how the game ended last night. You know, been through, you know, one of the best throws in the last couple of seasons to Freiermuth to put him in position to win the game. Great throw. Just Harrison Smith makes a great play to knock it out of his hands in the end zone. But man, it's tough. It's tough to swallow. Would have been a legendary comeback.
It would have been phenomenal, actually. There was a moment there where I was staring at the SI Sportsbook, and I was almost about to lose a lot of money with how much faith I had in the Steelers. Before we head out here, I have I just have like 3 quick hit questions because I feel like they've been talked about a lot on social media today, and I feel like we should address them real quick. First, Chase Claypool. I put this poll on Twitter, and it is pretty much split 50-50 down the middle. Chase Claypool, if nothing changes, you have to just all metaphorical, nothing changes. Chase Claypool is the guy that he is. Does he last his contract in Pittsburgh, his rookie deal?
I'll say yes, just because I think his talent will win out. Talent and draft, the 2 things that like I feel like let guys stick in the league is like talent and flashes, which we know he has, and then draft status. He's a top 50 pick. So, you know, you see first round bust and, you know, day 2 picks that don't live up to the hype. You see them get multiple chances with their own organization, and they'll go to other organizations and get chances there. I'll say yes, but man, he's got to grow up, man. I mean, they're going to be depending on him. That there's a big difference in like the maturity level between like him and a guy like Deontay Johnson, you know. And that's concerning because Deontay's not more than, you know, a year or 2 older than he is. So
Deontay is the same age as Chase Claypool, actually.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll say yes, just because I think eventually it'll click for him to where he's at least able to keep his composure on game day. And that's all I care about, man. Like, dude, like I know a lot of Steelers fans care about that TikTok stuff and the social media. I could give a damn about any of that. Excuse my language, but like talking about like on the football field, man, stop taking penalties. He's taken like 8 or I think he's taken 8 8 penalties this year for a receiver, and I'm pretty sure that's
he leads the NFL. Whatever the number is, I know he leads the NFL.
You just gotta know better, man.
Yep.
Know better.
Kendrick Green, is he the starting center for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season?
Oh man, you got to see some significant improvement over the last 4 weeks. You know, I don't want to give up on Green, and I've been saying that you got to ride this wave and see if he can figure it out because you know you spent a 3rd round pick on him, you don't really have much behind him, but you've got to see something over the past 4 weeks, in the next 4 weeks. I mean, the Steelers aren't going to make the playoffs, but you got to see some type of improvement, whether it's improvement in communication. Along the offensive line, picking up stunts, just picking up basic pass protections, whether it's, getting more push and holding his own in the run game, whether it's simply just snapping the freaking football correctly in the shotgun. You've got to see something or else he's probably not necessarily sharpied into a position next season heading into like training camp.
Same question for Dan Moore. Dan Moore, starting left tackle for the Steelers next season.
I think that Moore has a shot to start at tackle next year. I don't know that it'll be at left tackle. Moore struggles with speed and pass protection to me are extremely concerning for a left tackle. It really just left, right doesn't matter a ton. I mean, a lot of your elite edge rushers are rushing on the right side now, so it just doesn't matter a ton for me. I just worry a little bit about like if he's ever going to be able to hold up well enough in pass protection. But I have seen some flashes of his, particularly in the run game. Like I thought he was really, really good down the stretch against the Ravens last week. So I'll say that he has a shot to start next year. I would lean more towards right tackle because I'm praying that the Steelers are going to make a significant investment in this offensive line. You can put Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Montana. It does not matter. And if you don't fix this offensive line, you're wasting Najee Harris's career or first contract with the Steelers because he's not going to be able to run the football unless this improves. And then whoever's behind center, it doesn't matter, man. You got to be able to protect them long enough to throw the ball down the field. I think the Steelers need like at least 2, maybe 3 new starters along the offensive line next year. I'm not ready to pencil anybody in, like I said, for sure, other than Kevin Dotson, just because I still am a believer in his talent. I think Green and Moore could very well be starters next year. I just don't know if it's at the positions they're currently slated at.
All righty. And last one here for you. The Steelers make a bigger investment. It could be either free agency or draft or whatever in the defensive line or inside linebacker over the offseason.
Well, I mean, their big investment could just be getting Stephon Tuitt back. I mean, that he's making a lot of money. He hasn't played this year, still recovering from his injury.
Is Chris Wormley an issue? Chris Wormley has good games. He's not a good run stuffer, but he has decent games.
He's okay. He's turned a lot of his pressures into sacks, which is kind of, I think, disjointed a little bit of the perception around him. But Wormley's just a depth guy. He's not a guy that you went out there playing, 80% of your snaps or anything like that. But
all right.
I don't know, man. I mean, I would be pretty surprised if Pittsburgh was, content with the way that their run defense looked this season. I mean, they talked about it last year, all offseason, about addressing the run game. Of course, we really didn't see much improvement. We've not seen much improvement so far with that. But they did draft Najee Harris in the first round. Maybe we see a defensive lineman or a pass rusher or a run stopper early on in the NFL draft. I guess another thing that I'm willing to say, I see the Steelers more willing to spend, just based on previous history with Tomlin and Colbert, I see them more willing to spend big, like in the first round or in free agency on defense than I do offense. It's just how they build their teams, which is problematic. And that's why we're in this position really today, is because, like we've talked about, the model for the Steelers to make the playoffs this season was decent offense, which they haven't got decent. They're below average. But and then really good to great defense, and they've been a terrible defense. So, I think they're going to address that. I'm interested to see what they do with Bush and Schobert, though, to your question, because Bush,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. Because Schobert, I don't know if comes back.
I don't think that you can take Bush's fifth-year option. I know he's recovering from the ACL. I don't think that you can go with that. You just got to see what happens next year. I'm okay with penciling him as a starter, just because I don't think you want to make another investment after all the stuff. They've traded for Schobert, took him at 10 overall, drafted Buddy Johnson in the 4th round. But I wouldn't give him his 5th-year option. Then Schobert, man, he's like the 12th or 13th highest paid linebacker for next season. So, that's hard too. Bush has probably took more heat on social media just because some of the dumb stuff he did in the offseason, but Schobert's been just as bad, man, if not worse. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, I mean, the Steelers could turn over 4 starting positions from this year to next year on both sides of the ball, 4 to 5, maybe even 6. And it wouldn't.
I was gonna say maybe 6.
It wouldn't even surprise me. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of moves coming, like you said. It was a rough Thursday night, but we're gonna get through it. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at All Steelers Talk and check us out on Twitter at Nostrack, at Steelers_DB, and we will see you next week.